We are both recording.
Okay.
Okay. You can start, Yulia.
Uh, I'm very glad because I can opportunity to communicate with such a great person as Sam Vaknin today. I want to introduce. I think that everyone know this person, but I'll want to say that uh, today Professor Vaknin. Uh, Sam, can you help me to say how is called your book in English?
Yes, my book is Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited.
Mm-hmm.
That's my book. Maybe let me introduce myself. It will be
Yeah, it will be
important.
good.
Okay. Also, this is not about me. This is about narcissism. Yes.
Mhm.
So I'm a professor of psychology. Currently, my position is in Cambridge, United Kingdom, where I teach psychology to postgraduates in the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced Professional Studies. I'm also a visiting professor of psychology in many universities. I have been a visiting professor of psychology in Southern Federal University in Rostov-on-Don for 5 years until 1922, until 2022. And I'm also the author of many books. One of them you mentioned, Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. There are other books that I've written. So thank you for having me and for the kind words. And let's get on to the subject.
Thank you much. At first, I would like to speak about the reason of forming such NPD and to ask to tell you because if I know I know reasons searches were show that it's biological
Mhm.
reason of forming NPD. What do you think about it and why? I learned many your lections and I know that you say about um, influence of childhood of forming this problem. Can you speak about it? Can you
Yeah.
tell? Mm-hmm.
At this stage, we do not have any convincing, rigorous studies that show that um, pathological narcissism is biological or hereditary or genetic, or even that pathological narcissism involves brain abnormalities. In other words, we do not have studies that prove any of this. However, we do know that there is a trait of narcissism. This trait is universal. Every human being has the trait of narcissism to some degree. The trait of narcissism is hereditary, it is genetic. Like all traits are genetic. So this trait is genetic. Pathological narcissism is when this genetic trait of narcissism becomes pathologized. So the pathology is, at this stage, we believe, is created by the wrong family environment, created by childhood abuse, childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, bad situations in childhood. The mainstream belief, the mainstream teaching right now is that we should distinguish narcissism, which is healthy, it's universal. Narcissism is the foundation of our self-esteem and self-confidence and self-concept. So narcissism is always there. We should distinguish this from pathological narcissism, the same way we distinguish healthy cells from cancer cells. So there is no proof whatsoever that pathological narcissism is genetic or hereditary or even involves brain abnormalities. Having said that, I think in due time, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, maybe longer, we will prove that pathological narcissism is hereditary, is genetic. Right now, we don't have this information. We don't have evidence for this. But I think it's very reasonable to assume for two reasons. Reason number one, you can have a group of children. The children are exposed to the same parents, the same family, the same upbringing, but only one of them becomes a narcissist. The others don't become narcissists. This is a very powerful indication that there is some genetic or hereditary component, or maybe brain abnormality, something biological, neurobiological. Statistically, if you expose 100 children to trauma and abuse, statistically only 1.7 children would become narcissists. And that is a strong indication of neurobiology at work. Another indication that probably it's neurobiological is the fact that narcissistic personality disorder is one member of a family of disorders. They're known as cluster B personality disorders. So narcissistic personality disorder is a family member of borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, histrionic personality disorder. And we know that in borderline personality disorder, there is a strong genetic component and also brain abnormalities. We know that in psychopathy, similarly, there's a strong genetic component, hereditary component, and also that there are massive changes to the brain. The brain of the psychopath is highly abnormal. And so borderline and psychopathy are the cousins of narcissism. They are the relatives of narcissism. And so it is very, very reasonable to assume that narcissism is also genetic, hereditary, and neurobiological, but we don't have any proof for that. What we do know over the last 150 years, because narcissism has been first described in 1897 by Havelock Ellis, a long time ago. So what we do know over this period of studies and research, more than 100 years, is that pathological narcissism is intimately connected to abuse and trauma in early childhood. We know that in the background of every single narcissist, there is a dysfunctional family. There is bad parenting, wrong parenting. Now, when I say abuse, it doesn't mean only physical abuse or sexual abuse. When I say abuse, it means when the parental figures, mainly the mother, does not allow the child to separate from her and become an individual. So when I say abuse, a mother who is overprotective, a mother who is spoiling, a mother who emotionally blackmails the child, a mother who creates an ambience of incestual ambience, mothers who are depressive, mothers who are selfish, mothers who are insecure. All these kinds of mothers create an abusive environment because they don't allow the child to separate and to go on in life and become an individual. So when we say abuse, a background of abuse, we mean any mother, mainly the mother, who doesn't know how to be a mother, doesn't know how to function as a mother, is afraid of the role of a mother, is insecure or maybe emotionally absent. There are two ways that you can develop as a mother. There are two ways you can make sure that your child ends up being a narcissist. One way is if you spoil the child, pamper the child, idolize the child, pedestalize the child. If you overprotect the child, if you isolate the child from reality and from the environment, from peers, this is one pathway to narcissism. This could result in narcissism. The other way is, of course, classical abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, neglect, abandonment, emotional absence. They also create narcissists. So there are two ways to create a narcissist, not only one.
Yes.
This is, in a nutshell, how we look at narcissism right now. We know that narcissism as a trait is genetic, hereditary, but unfortunately, until now, we have not been able to prove conclusively that pathological narcissism, the cancer the cancer of the soul, the cancer of narcissism, is genetic, hereditary, or involves any brain abnormalities at this stage. I think this situation will change soon. I think we will be able to prove it.
Okay. When they say about NPD, we say that about of absent of empathy.
Empathy,
Yes.
yes.
How do you think? Is it a biological thing, or such person don't want to this empathy проявлять, to проявлять?
Yeah.
How do you think?
As I said, there at this stage we don't have any conclusive studies. We have a few studies with tiny number of people, very, very small number of people, and many of these people have other mental health issues, not only narcissism. They have borderline, they have manic depression, there are no serious studies that prove that there is any biological connection in narcissism, in pathological narcissism. So the lack of empathy is a reaction to abuse and trauma in early childhood. We do know. We have been able to prove this.
Mm.
Now, it's not completely accurate to say that narcissists don't have empathy. When I say narcissist, I mean someone diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And half of all these people are women. So even though I use the male gender pronouns, I say he, I actually also mean women with narcissistic personality disorder. So it's not correct to say that they don't have empathy. They don't have one component of empathy. They don't have emotional empathy. They don't have affective empathy. They do have cognitive empathy, and they do have reflexive empathy. Now, in empathy, there are three ingredients, three components. When you're born as a baby, you have reflexive empathy. Mother smiles at you. As a baby, you smile back. That is reflexive empathy. You empathize with mother. She's smiling, you're smiling as a baby. Then a little later in life, you develop cognitive empathy. Between the ages of 2 and 4, more or less, you develop cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to make sense, to understand the states of mind of other people, to understand other people's minds. And this is done through a process called mentalization. We're able to mentalize other people. We're able to create a theory of mind, a theory about other people's minds. What are the psychological processes that take place in other people's minds? What makes other people tick? What are their motivations? And so on. So we create a theory. And this theory is the foundation of cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy, for example, is when you see someone crying and you say to yourself, this person is sad. He's sad. That's why he's crying. This is cognitive empathy. Emotional empathy or affective empathy is when you react emotionally to the emotional states of other people. When you see someone sad, you become sad. When you see someone happy, you become happy. You put yourself in the other person's shoes, in the other person's place, and you experience vicariously, by proxy, indirectly, you experience their state of mind. This is known as emotional or affective empathy, and the narcissist and the psychopath don't have this type of empathy. They are able to perfectly make sense of the minds of other people, the state of mind of other people, the emotions of other people, the cognitions of other people. They're perfectly able to decode, to decipher other people, to understand other people, but they never react emotionally to this knowledge, to this understanding. They have no emotional reaction. On the contrary, once they have made sense of what is happening to another person, the next stage, they're asking themselves, how can I use this in my favor? I know that she's sad. How can I use this? How can I obtain goals? How can I take money from her? How can I, So in narcissism and psychopathy, there is what I call cold empathy, very cold empathy, cold like brr, empathy. It's empathy that is mainly cognitive, where the narcissist looks at another person, says to himself, this is what's happening to that other person. And the next question is, how can I take advantage of this? How can I use this? How can I obtain my goals, accomplish my goals? Now that I've understood what's happening to that other person, how can I leverage it? So same with the psychopath. So they have cold empathy. It's not that they don't have empathy. They are just not able to react emotionally to knowledge that they gain about other people.
Understand. I'll speak mixedly, English and Russian, okay? You understand me. I looked your lecture about злокачественный нарциссизм. Злокачественный, yes?
Malignant.
How often we can meet it?
The malignant narcissist, yes.
Yeah, malignant.
Yes, the malignant narcissist, luckily for humanity, is very rare. Malignant narcissism is a phrase coined by Otto Kernberg in the 70s. Otto Kernberg described a narcissist who is also a psychopath and also a sadist. So in malignant narcissism, we have clinical narcissism, clinical psychopathy, and clinical sadism. And this combination is seriously dangerous and very bad. Luckily, only about, we think, we don't have studies, but we think from clinical practice that only about 2 to 3% of narcissists are malignant narcissists. So it's extremely rare. Only one in 70 people, 1 in 70 people is a narcissist, and only 2 to 3% are malignant narcissists. So one in 2,000 people is a malignant narcissist. It's extremely rare. You are, in a lifetime, you're very unlikely to come across a malignant narcissist. It's very unlikely that you met someone who is a malignant narcissist.
And clinical, you mean that they have changes in the brain, yeah?
No, clinical means that they can be diagnosed. We distinguish between clinical and subclinical. Clinical means that the person can be diagnosed, can be given a diagnosis. And subclinical means that even though the person is showing certain behaviors and certain traits, these behaviors and traits are not enough to diagnose the person, not enough to render a diagnosis. So that would be a subclinical person. An example of subclinical narcissism is what is known as dark triad and dark tetrad personalities. Dark personalities are people who have narcissistic traits and behaviors, psychopathic traits and behaviors sometimes, Machiavellianism, they're manipulative, they manipulate people. And in the case of dark tetrad, they're also sadistic. But these people are subclinical. Dark personalities are subclinical personalities. In other words, we cannot diagnose these people with narcissistic personality disorder. We cannot diagnose them with antisocial personality disorder because the traits and behaviors are not sufficiently extreme to justify or to warrant a diagnosis. So we call these people subclinical. Generally speaking, in clinical psychology, we are just starting to consider brain abnormalities, genetics. This is new. Neuroscience, and evolutionary psychology and behavioral genetics, and these are all new fields, very new. And the studies are not very convincing and not very serious at this stage. I think maybe in the future the situation will become better, but right now none of us in universities as professors, none of us are convinced that in any of these studies. So we do from time to time mention these studies, but they do not constitute a part of the curriculum or the syllabus. What we teach instead is what we are sure of. And what we are sure of is that childhood, upbringing, trauma, abuse, other adverse experiences, society, culture, we are sure of the impacts, we are sure of the influence of these things. We are not sure of the influence of brain abnormalities, and we are absolutely not sure of the involvement of neurobiology or genetics. This, I think, maybe in 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, but right now we are not sure at all. And probably it's an interaction between the two. Probably there is some genetic template, there is some brain abnormalities that interact with life experience to generate the pathology. Additionally, there's a major problem here. We cannot predict which child will become a narcissist. We don't know.
Yeah.
So we never test the brain of the child as a child. We test the brain of the narcissist when the narcissist is 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. So we cannot tell if the brain abnormality is the result of narcissism.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because we did not follow the brain longitudinally over a long period of time. We come to the brain of the narcissist when the narcissism is already there. So how do we know if the brain was abnormal in childhood and this abnormality led to narcissism, or if a lifelong of narcissism, 20 years of narcissism, 30 years of narcissism, affected the brain, created abnormality in the brain. In other words, we have correlation, but we don't have causation, which makes the whole situation very difficult. The only way we can be sure that narcissism is genetic, that narcissism involves brain abnormalities, the only way is to take 100 newborn children and to follow their brains all the time for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Only then we can be sure. Not 100 children, but 1,000 children. Only then we can be sure, begin to be sure. But as the situation is right now, it's a joke. It's a joke. So what if you study the brain of 100 narcissists and all these brains are problematic, let's assume. So what? It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that the brain caused the narcissism. Maybe the narcissism caused this type of brain. We don't know. Similarly, when we say that genetics is linked to narcissism, we need to see the expression of the genes. We need to follow the way the gene behaves from the moment you're born until much later, because genes are triggered by the environment. The environment triggers genes. This is called epigenetics. So how do we know that the genes were okay, but then they were triggered by, for example, pollution, air pollution, chemicals, minerals, food,
Yes.
abuse, trauma? How do we know? We don't know. That's the answer. Because we are testing adults. We never ever test babies. We test adults. And when you test adults, it's already too late because you don't have the evolution of the disorder, the evolution of the pathology. So that's why I think it's much too early to talk about this.
Understand it. Okay. You say that this malignant narcissism is dividing on 3 types. One of them is скрытый, пограничный. Yes?
Hidden, covert.
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 And I want to ask, if 2 persons in the same abusing family, one will be covert, and another narcissist.
This distinction relies on very, very old information that we are no longer using. But it's not your fault. They're still teaching this in university. They're still in clinicians, in the training of clinicians. This is completely wrong information. There are no two types of narcissists. There are two types of narcissism. So we don't have a narcissist who is we don't have a narcissist who is overt and a narcissist who is covert. No. What we have is two types of narcissism. And the same narcissist sometimes is overt, sometimes is covert. Covert and overt are two states of narcissism which manifest in every narcissist. So, imagine that you're an overt narcissist. By the way, many people use the phrase, even professionals use the phrase grandiose narcissist. That is not a good phrase. It should not be used because covert narcissists are also grandiose. So all narcissists are grandiose. There's no such thing as grandiose narcissists and covert narcissists. No, they're both grandiose. Grandiosity is a cognitive distortion. Grandiosity is when we falsify reality in order to confirm or uphold some kind of inflated, fantastic self-concept. So psychopaths are grandiose, borderlines are grandiose, narcissists are grandiose, people with bipolar disorder in the manic phase, they're grandiose. Grandiosity is not limited to narcissism. It's in many mental health. Psychotics, people with psychosis are very often grandiose. So this is not limited to narcissism. And when you say grandiose narcissist, you're confusing grandiosity with narcissism. So much better is to say overt and covert. Overt means open, yes, and covert. Now, the overt narcissist, when the overt narcissist experiences failure, defeat, shame, humiliation, when the overt narcissist is criticized, when the overt narcissist is exposed, when something bad happens to the overt narcissist, he becomes covert. Covert narcissism is simply a reaction to what we call narcissistic injury or narcissistic mortification. Narcissistic injury is any situation where there is a challenge to the inflated, grandiose, fantastic self-concept or self-image. When this is challenged by reality or by other people, the narcissist experiences narcissistic injury. If the injury is very, very big, we call it narcissistic mortification. And the narcissist goes through a phase called collapse. The narcissist is unable to obtain attention, narcissistic supply. At that point, the narcissist becomes covert. So, an overt narcissist who fails to obtain narcissistic supply, fails to obtain attention, an overt narcissist who is shamed, humiliated, criticized, exposed, this overt narcissist would become covert. The same person would transition from one state of narcissism to another state of narcissism, from overt to covert. So it's not true to say that there are two types of narcissists. It's true to say that all narcissists go through phases of overt phases and covert phases. So why is this mistake? Why people say that there are two types of narcissists? Why this mistake? Because academics study narcissists when they are in the overt phase. The academic, the scholar, the professor, they study narcissists who are overt in the overt phase. They are grandiose, they are arrogant, they're disempathic, they're exploitative, they are gung-ho, you know. They're happy with themselves, they're egocentric, they feel good with themselves. And then these are the narcissists that we study at the university. These are the narcissists who participate in studies and research. So in academia, they think all narcissists are overt. The clinicians, the therapists, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, they see the covert phase of narcissism. When the narcissist comes to therapy, when the narcissist needs help, they are already covert. They are in covert state. They feel bad. They're suicidal. They are dysregulated emotionally. So the clinician, the therapist, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, they see only covert narcissists because the overt narcissist never goes to therapy. And the academics, they see only overt narcissists because the covert narcissist would go to therapy, not to academia. So consequently, it created the illusion, it created the wrong perception that there are two types of narcissists. It's not two types. It's the same people. Sometimes they are overt, sometimes they are covert. And this is the situation.
Yeah, understand. Great. And what must happen that narcissist understand that he has disorder, because some of them start to tell about his problems and explain what because of what they behavior in this направлении. And you help them to understand it because they start to hear you, and so they tell because of what Sam Vaknin tells, I'm I'm this person. What must happen per person may understand it?
First of all, a narcissist would use anything to obtain supply. If by saying, I'm a narcissist, I can obtain supply, I will say it. So many of these self-aware narcissists, healing narcissists, recovered narcissists, this is nonsense. They're just using it to obtain narcissistic supply, to obtain attention, to be in the center. So anything goes. The narcissist would say anything. The narcissist would do anything to obtain supply. But there is a group of narcissists. There are some narcissists. When they experience narcissistic injury or narcissistic collapse or narcissistic mortification, in other words, when the narcissist is defeated or experiences failure or is humiliated or is shamed or is exposed, when the narcissist cannot obtain narcissistic supply, cannot secure attention, never mind what he does. So in this situation, the narcissist could develop, in principle, self-awareness. The narcissist could say, something is wrong. That's why I am not obtaining attention. That's why I'm not having narcissistic supply, because something is wrong. Or that is why people are criticizing me and disagreeing with me and humiliating me and shaming me because I've done something or something is wrong. So it is possible for narcissists to develop self-awareness, awareness of their own psychology, but it is extremely unlikely that they would believe that their narcissistic personality disorder is a bad thing, a disorder. A narcissist would regard his narcissism as an advantage, as the next stage in evolution. A narcissist would regard his narcissism as something that makes the narcissist superior to other people. So a narcissist could reach the conclusion that he is a narcissist, but then he would glorify the narcissism, glamorize it. He would say, this is a great thing. I'm a narcissist means that I'm superior, I'm super intelligent, I'm irresistible, I'm strong, I'm charismatic, I'm resilient. So they would glorify the disorder. They would use the disorder to self-enhance. Self-enhancement is a critical concept in narcissism, in the study of narcissism. Narcissists are busy all the time self-enhancing. Self-enhancement is an attempt to reconcile reality with fantasy. The narcissist has a fantasy about himself. The narcissist's self-concept, self-perception, self-image are fantastic. They're not real. So this creates a lot of problems because it's difficult to reconcile. Reality is pushing back. Reality is challenging the fantastic, inflated, grandiose self-concept. And so the narcissist constantly self-enhances. He constantly tries to put together reality and fantasy by falsifying reality, reframing it, creating an alternative reality. So this is the fantasy defense at the foundation, at the basis of pathological narcissism. As the narcissist self-enhances, he uses everything. So if the narcissist has narcissistic personality disorder, he would use it to self-enhance. Even when the narcissist says, for example, on YouTube, if a narcissist says, I am bad, I'm hurting people, something is wrong with me, I'm going to therapy, and so on. This is a form of self-enhancement. We call this type of narcissist prosocial narcissist or communal narcissist. This is a narcissist who obtains attention by pretending to be a good person. Then this narcissist secures narcissistic supply by claiming to be charitable, altruistic, loving, compassionate, caring, empathic, and repentant. A narcissist who says, I know that I'm a bad person and I'm so sorry for it. That's a pro-social narcissist because he wants to show us what a good person is, how moral and ethical he is, and so on. None of this should be believed. Nothing the narcissist says should be believed. It's all because narcissists are junkies. They're addicts. They're exactly like addicts. If you know alcoholics and if you know drug addicts, they will lie to you to take your money. They would steal your money. You could be the mother of a drug addict, and he would steal from you. And he would tell you stories to force you to give him money. Narcissists are addicts. They're junkies. They're addicted to attention. They don't use heroin. They don't use cocaine. They don't use alcohol. They use attention. This is their drug. But they're exactly like junkies. They would tell you whatever you want to hear. They would pretend to be good people. And when you're not looking, they will steal away your attention, your heart, your emotions, and much worse. It is not an accident that among people with narcissistic personality disorder, the incidence and prevalence of substance abuse is very high. In other words, alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, drugs, and so on, they are much higher among narcissists than in the general population. Narcissists are very likely to use alcohol, drugs, and so on because they have addictive personality. They have an addictive personality. They're addicted to narcissistic supply. They're addicted to, so it's easy for them, since they are addicted to attention, it's easy for them to become addicted to alcohol or even to become addicted to a fantasy. They believe that this fantasy is love. So they say that they're addicted to love. It's not love. It's a fantasy of love, but they can become addicted to it. Definitely. Addiction is a core feature of narcissism. And if you want to understand the narcissist perfectly, all you have to do is think about a drug addict, because they're the same.
Interesting. How do you think, is it any importance for evolution of narcissism?
I'm not sure I understood the question. I didn't understand.
The question is evolution importance
Evolutionary
of
importance
such people
of
as
narcissism.
narcissists.
Evolution of
Nothing.
humankind, she means.
I'm sorry?
For evolution of humankind.
Yes, yes. I got it now. Thank you, Andre. First of all, in psychology, there is no right and wrong, no good and evil. Nothing in psychology is good or bad. No such thing. For example, consider depression. If I ask people, is depression good? They will say, no, it's bad. Depression is bad. But if you are in prison, if you are in Auschwitz, depression is a healthy, appropriate reaction. If you are in prison and you're happy, you are not well, you're mentally ill. If you're in prison and you are depressed, you're okay, you're mentally healthy. It's appropriate reaction to depression, to prison, to be depressed. So we cannot say depression is bad, narcissism is bad, psychopathy is bad. No, it depends on context, depends on environment, depends on bigger picture. As the environment changes, as civilization changes, narcissism and psychopathy can become positive adaptations. They can become positive things. If you live in a society, some types of society, if you're a psychopath, it would be a good thing for you. It would be positive for you. You would make money, you would rise to the top, you would, for example, Nazi Germany. In Nazi Germany, to be a psychopath was a positive thing, positive adaptation. And so in some types of civilization, narcissism and psychopathy are evolutionary advantages. In other words, these types of environments, these types of civilizations, these types of periods of history, they would be conducive to narcissism. They would reward narcissism. And narcissists would have bigger chance to have children, to procreate. So there will be more and more narcissists all the time. This is natural selection, survival of the fittest. So it's Darwinism. There are scholars, there are experts, there are professors like Kevin Dutton, like Macoby, others. They say that narcissism and psychopathy are a good thing. They're a good thing for humanity. They're a good thing for the species. They say that narcissists and psychopaths are uniquely positioned. They have advantages to be leaders. They're good leaders. They say that in some professions, for example, medical surgeons, psychopathy is helpful. In other words, they say that psychopathy is good for the individual in specific societies and cultures, but also good for the human species. And so there is a big debate in academia. This is not decided. If you have to make some decisions, some very difficult decisions, if you have empathy, it's a problem. If you have to cut someone with a knife, you have to cut someone with a knife in a hospital because you're a medical doctor, you're a surgeon. If you have a problem with that, that's a disadvantage. But if you're a psychopath, no problem. Indeed, we find that among medical surgeons, the prevalence of psychopaths is much higher. There are many more psychopaths among surgeons than in the general population. So the answer to your question is it depends. In some contexts, in some civilizations, in some professions, in some roles, psychopathy and narcissism are positive adaptations and represent an evolutionary advantage. That is definite. In others, no. In the long term, psychopaths and narcissists are self-destructive in the long term. So, psychopaths and narcissists always implode. They always end badly. They always destroy themselves and everyone around them. But in the short term and medium term, psychopaths and narcissists could be useful, especially if they're embedded in an environment with many, many healthy, normal people. So healthy, normal people can make use of narcissists and psychopaths to obtain certain goals and so on, but still maintain some kind of control over these people. But if you don't have control over these people, they will destroy everything. They're like time bombs.
Understand, thank you. We often say in psychotherapy, we say that we don't treat people with such disorders, but we adaptate them. So I have a question. How it will be life of narcissist, it will be comfortably for him and not damaged for everybody around. No, for him, I think.
Yeah. These two goals are mutually exclusive. They're contradictory. When the narcissist feels good with himself, when the narcissist is egosyntonic, feels good with himself, feels comfortable with himself, is happy, it means that other people suffer. When people around the narcissist are happy, they don't suffer, the narcissist suffers. You have to choose. What is your treatment goal? If your treatment goal is socially oriented, to minimize the damage that the narcissist inflicts on other people, then this is one treatment goal. If the treatment goal is to make the narcissist happy or egosyntonic or functional, that's another goal. But then the people around the narcissist will have to pay a price. So today, in the majority of practices, the praxis today, in the West at least, the praxis is to emphasize the social dimension, the social aspect, to minimize the damage and the impacts of the narcissist. And we do this by helping the narcissist modify some behaviors. We teach the narcissist to modify some antisocial behaviors, some abrasive behaviors, some unpleasant behaviors. We teach the narcissist to conform more with society, to function better in social settings, to maintain longer-term relationships, and so on and so forth. It makes the narcissist more acceptable socially. It makes the narcissist less damaging and so on the one hand, but on the other hand, the narcissist pays a price because he has to deny himself. He has to become someone else, We have been successful at modifying behaviors of narcissists in the short term and even sometimes medium term, up to 6 months. But we need to do it all the time. We need maintenance. You cannot modify the behaviors of the narcissist and then send him away into society and forget about him. Because very soon, the narcissist relapses, goes back to his old habits, old behaviors, and so on. Again, this is very similar to alcoholism. In alcoholism, the rate of relapse is 80 to 90%. It's very similar in narcissism. You can teach a narcissist to be more acceptable, better person, more pleasant person, less obnoxious, less aggressive, less, antisocial, less psychopathic, less defined. You can teach a narcissist to become more socially integrated, but that is going to last 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. That's it. He's going to relapse. You have to do it all over again. What you can definitely do not do, never mind who claims otherwise, because many therapists and practitioners and clinicians, they claim that they can cure narcissism. They can heal narcissism. This is charlatanism. This is completely untrue. Completely untrue. You cannot cure or heal. You cannot change any major clinical feature of narcissism. Not one. You cannot develop empathy. You cannot change envy. There's no major clinical feature of narcissism. Antagonism, negative affectivity, dissociality, anankastia, which means obsessive compulsive features. You cannot touch any of these. They are there forever. Now, in the West, we have something called political correctness. There are some things you are not supposed to say. Never. Don't say these things. Even if they're true, you're not allowed to say them. So one thing you're not allowed to say is that the narcissist is the disorder. You're supposed to say that the narcissist is someone with narcissistic personality disorder. You're not supposed to say narcissist. You're not supposed to say borderline. You say a patient or a client with borderline personality disorder. But that's nonsense. The narcissist is the disorder. If you take away the disorder, there's nobody there. There's no one there. There is no client with narcissistic personality disorder. There's only narcissistic personality disorder. The narcissist is the disorder. End of story. So you cannot cure or heal the narcissist because he is the disorder. That is the essence. That's who he is. That's his identity, core identity, that is his self, substitute self. You cannot take that away. And so what you can do, you can tweak certain behaviors, and maybe worldview, maybe you can create new narratives, or you can play around, but you cannot take away the core features which are the individual. These features are the individual. You cannot take that away. So it's nonsense to say that you can cure or heal or so on. Narcissists in general are egosyntonic, even covert narcissists. There is a misconception, even in clinical literature, that covert narcissists are ego-dystonic, that covert narcissists are unhappy. They don't like themselves. They're uncomfortable with themselves. That is not true. All narcissists are egosyntonic. All narcissists are very happy with who they are. The covert narcissist is unhappy with other people. The covert narcissist says, I'm a genius, but no one recognizes me. I deserve promotion in work, but no one is giving me promotion because they envy me. So the covert narcissist is very envious, very resentful, very passive-aggressive. Yes, but it's about other people, not about himself. The covert narcissist thinks that he's godlike, he's perfect, he's genius, he's amazing. It's just other people, they're stupid. Other people are envious. They don't appreciate him. And the overt narcissist, of course, is happy because the overt narcissist thinks that he is God, that he is a perfect entity, that he has omniscience, he's all-knowing, he's omnipotent, he's all-powerful, he's brilliant, this egosyntony, the fact that the narcissist feels very good with himself, very happy with himself, makes treatment very difficult. Because for treatment, you need some kind of crisis. You need some kind of discomfort. For treatment to be successful, the client, the patient must acknowledge that there is a problem. The client and the patient must be in distress. They must be unhappy for the treatment to work. If a client comes to you and says, I'm perfectly happy, I don't see anything wrong, I'm okay, nothing to do. You cannot treat this client. And this is the typical narcissist. Do you want a break? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, okay. I'll try to understand. It's very interesting. And what women do they choose?
What? The
What
women do
women?
they
Yeah,
choose?
yeah.
Narcissists are incapable of perceiving other people as external entities. They are not capable of regarding other people as separate from them. The narcissist as a child did not experience separation from the mother. Consequently, the narcissist did not experience the mother as external. The narcissist was fused with the mother, merged in a symbiosis, in a symbiotic state with the mother. So mother and the child were one. Consequently, when this child grows up, the child is not capable of perceiving other people as external, as separate. The narcissist perceives other people as internal objects, introjects. Other people are inside his mind. They don't exist outside. Consequently, the narcissist couldn't care less who you are. It is not true that narcissists have types that they prefer, certain types of women that they prefer. That is not true. That is a myth. It's a self-aggrandizing myth. It's a myth that makes you feel good because you say, the narcissist chose me because I'm very kind. The narcissist chose me because I'm very empathic. I'm a nice person. Or the narcissist chose me because I'm intelligent or because I'm... This is about you. You want to feel good with yourself. You're aggrandizing yourself. And so, but this is not the case. The narcissist cannot see you. The narcissist doesn't realize, it doesn't care whether you're empathic or nice or kind. If you're intelligent, it's a threat. If you are, so narcissists couldn't care less about you. They care a lot about what you can give them. So what you can give them is what I call the 4 S's. S's, like a letter S. The 4 S's. The narcissist wants you to give him two out of the 4 S's. Any two that you choose. So S number 1 is sex. S number 2 is supply, narcissistic supply. So for example, if you're very beautiful, that gives the narcissist narcissistic supply because he owns you. You're like a trophy. You're like a beautiful car, luxury car, you know. So yes, narcissists may choose you because you're very beautiful, but it's not because of your beauty. It's because he can get supply from other people, from other men, for example. Okay, so supply, narcissistic, sometimes sadistic supply. Can the narcissist be sadistic with you? If you allow the narcissist to be sadistic with you, you are giving him sadistic supply. If you attract attention to the narcissist, you are giving him narcissistic supply. If you admire the narcissist, if you adore the narcissist, if you worship the narcissist, you are giving him narcissistic supply. So sex, supply, narcissistic or sadistic. Services. Services. The third S, you remember there are 4 S's? Services. All kinds of services. Driving him, shopping for him, taking care of him, making food for him, anything that he decides that he needs. Serving as his personal assistant, his secretary, introducing him to other people, your contacts, and so on. This is creating a business for him, financing him, giving him money. These are services. And the last thing is safety, stability, security. To be there. The narcissist needs you to be there all the time, never to abandon him, never to reject him, never to criticize him, never to disagree with him. So, this is what the narcissist is interested in. 2 of the 4, sex, supply, services, stability, safety. So you can give him sex and safety. It's okay. You can give him supply and services, but not sex. It's okay. You can give him sex and services. It's okay. Any two. He doesn't care who you are. Again, if you have a lot of money, he cares about it because it's part of the services. If you're beautiful, he cares about it because of the narcissistic supply. But it's not about you. It's about what you can bring him from other people. So this is the picture. However, the other side of the coin, the flip side of the coin, is valid. It is not true. It is not valid to say that narcissists are attracted to specific types of women. Not true. But it is true that specific types of women are attracted to narcissists. That is true. That would be women with highly specific psychological profile. These would be women, for example, who did not experience love in childhood, in early childhood. These would be women with mental health issues, such as borderline personality disorder or dependent personality disorder, codependency. These would be women who have just experienced a crisis or a problem in life, and they're very vulnerable, they're very weak. This could be women who have had very horrible life, very difficult life, and they're damaged, they're broken. So these type of women are likely to gravitate to the narcissist. It is true that specific types of women prefer the narcissist, want the narcissist, feel comfortable with the narcissist. The narcissist is their comfort zone. That much is true. Because the narcissist projects superiority, self-confidence. The narcissist is like a rock. The narcissist gives you the impression that he can solve all your problems, that you never need to worry, that you can feel safe, that you are secure, that now you can rest, you can be calm, you don't need to have anxiety. The narcissist is also very exciting, very dramatic, very adventurous. So he brings color into your life. When you are vulnerable, when you are susceptible, when you are damaged in some way, permanently or temporarily damaged, when you're broken, when there is a way to access you, to penetrate you, you are much more vulnerable to the narcissist. You're much more in danger of ending up with a narcissist. You don't need to be empathic. Narcissists, for example, have partners which are psychopaths. Narcissists have partners which are other narcissists. You don't need to be empathic or nice or kind. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be so broken, so damaged, that you are defenseless. You have no defense. It doesn't matter who you are. And this is the kind of woman who would gravitate to would seek the narcissist, would like to be with the narcissist, would dream of being a narcissist. The narcissist provides you with an escape from reality. There are two things the narcissist gives you. Escape from reality, because narcissism is based on fantasy. You no longer need to be in reality. Reality failed you. In reality, you felt bad. In reality, you were depressed and anxious. In reality, you were scared. And now narcissist comes and says, you don't have to be in reality anymore. You can be in my fantasy, in my playground, in my Disney world, you know? And the second thing the narcissist gives you, he allows you to love yourself, finally, because he idealizes you. He creates an ideal version of you, perfect. He tells you that you're perfect. And then finally, you can love yourself because you're perfect. You were not able to love yourself before. You were self-critical, harshly. You rejected yourself. You were self-harming or self-defeating or self-destructive. And here comes a narcissist and tells you, you're the most perfect. You're drop-dead gorgeous, you're amazing, you're intelligent, you're incredible. And suddenly you say to yourself, this is the kind of person I can love. If I'm really like that, I can love myself. and you experience self-love. Additionally, the narcissist attracts your maternal side, triggers your maternal instincts as a mother, because the narcissist shows you his childlike features, his childlike aspects. Pathological narcissism is a disruption in the formation of the self in early childhood. Pathological narcissism, the self was not completely formed because there were many problems, a lot of adversity, abuse, trauma, wrong parenting, and so on. The child fails to develop an ego, cannot develop a self. So the child remains stuck. Psychologically speaking, narcissists are 2 years old. They're 3 years old, psychologically, emotionally speaking. And so when you meet the narcissist, when you come across a narcissist, he's a child. It's a child. And he gives you access to this child. He introduces you to this child. And immediately you become a mother. Immediately. Your maternal instincts are triggered. By the way, not only if you're a woman, also if you're a man. When a man sees a baby, they immediately become like mothers. They become, they melt, they love the baby. Men, you don't have to be a woman. Narcissist introduces you to his childlike aspects, to his inner child, and you fall in love with this child. It triggers your maternal aspects and instincts, and you cannot let go. Because what mother can give up on her child? As a mother, you cannot give up on this child. It became your child, And this is the source of the narcissist's power over you. This is the glue. This is the addiction. This is the drug that he converts you into a mother. And after that, to give up on your child, it's very, very difficult. And the grief, the mourning after breaking up with the narcissist, the grief is huge because it's the grief of a mother who has lost her child.
And is it possible to explain women who feel this abuse, but they say, "I love him. He may do everything with this woman," and they say, "No, I love him. I want to be with him." And it is Morak, Morak. Is it possible to explain such women that are dependent on this narcissists?
First of all, there are women who feel good with abuse. They feel comfortable. If you grow up in a family where your father was abusing you all the time, beating you up, then you will feel comfortable with abuse. You know how abuse works. You can predict the abuse. You can manage the abuse. You will feel uncomfortable with a man who is not abusive, because the only kind of man you know is an abuser. So you have all the tools and all the instruments to cope with abuse. We call it the comfort zone. Your comfort zone is abuse. There are women like that. And when the partner refuses to abuse them, imagine that they picked up a partner who is not abusive and he refuses to abuse. They will provoke the partner to abuse them. They will force the partner. They will trigger the partner. They will make sure that this partner abuses them, because only then they feel good and comfortable. Only then. This process is known as projective identification. Projective identification is when you attribute to another person a behavior or a trait and then force them to behave in the way that you want them to behave. So this is one group of women. Another group of women are women who connect abuse and love. They interpret abuse as a form of love, and they believe that love must include abuse. So I'll give you an example. You talk to a woman and her partner beat her up. You ask her, "Why did he beat you up?" Oh, he was jealous. I was looking at another man and he was jealous and he beat me up. And how do you feel about it? I feel great. It proves that he loves me. That he beat me up, he was jealous, he loves me. That's proof that he loves me. So these women connect love with abusive behavior, with jealousy, with beatings, and if this kind of man would not be jealous, imagine that she goes out with him, she looks at another man, she talks to another man, she flirts with another man, and her husband or whatever doesn't react, doesn't care. She would feel unloved. She needs the husband to be jealous, and she needs the husband to be aggressive and maybe even violent, because this is proof of love. And without it, she has no proof of love. She is unloved. So that's another group of women who would feel comfortable with abuse because it's proof of love. The third group of women are women who feel that there is no alternative. These are women who say, for example, so what if I leave him? I will leave him, I will find another man, and that other man will abuse me also. All men abuse. So why to exchange one man for another man? Anyhow, they will abuse me. So these are women who feel that there are no alternatives, no realistic alternatives, and better stay where they are. The fourth group of women, they feel trapped. They believe that there are alternatives, there are good men, there are men who will not abuse them and so on, but there's no way for them to get there. There's no way for them to find them. So, for example, these are women who are financially dependent on the abuser, or women who have children with the abuser, and they are afraid that the abuser will end up taking the children. These women are in a trap. They're entrapped. They cannot exit the trap. They feel that they cannot exit the trap. And so they accept the abuse as the cost of staying, you know. And finally, there's a group of women who deny the abuse. They repress the abuse. They reframe the abuse. And so, for example, these women would say, it was my fault. I made him do it. I provoked him. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have behaved this way. I deserve it. I had it coming. So they are reframing the abuse. And by reframing the abuse, they're creating a narrative where they're actually not abused because they made it happen. They're in control. When you say it's my fault, I provoked him, means you are in control. You control the situation. You made him abuse you, so you control him. You're in charge. You're the boss. So this restores what we call internal locus of control. It restores the sense of mastery, the sense of control. This kind of woman lies to herself. She says, I am not being abused. I am triggering the abuse. I'm causing the abuse. I'm making the abuse happen, but I am in charge. I'm in charge. I'm in control. This is a lie. It's self-deception, but it's the only way to survive in such an environment. Luckily, by the way, majority of women would accept that this is unacceptable abusive behavior, and majority of women would seek a way out. Majority of women would leave. It is not true that majority of women stay with abusers. Majority of them leave the abuse. That's luckily. But there is a sizable minority, maybe 40%, maybe, that stay with the abusers, and for the reasons that I just gave.
Thank you. And if your child is narcissist and parents see that his behavior is not normal in very early age, how they should treat with him?
We do not diagnose pathological narcissism before the age of 21. A child cannot be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder or even with pathological narcissism, and similarly an adolescent. And the reason is that narcissism in childhood and narcissism in adolescence is healthy, is good. I will give you an example. At the age of 18 months, between the ages of 18 months and 36 months of life, the child needs to say goodbye to mother and to begin to explore the world. The child needs to walk away from mother, needs to touch all kinds of things, needs to taste all kinds of things. The child needs to find other children to play with, and so on. So at this age, which is known as separation individuation phase, at this stage in human development, the child needs to say goodbye to mother and explore the world. But to do so, the child needs to be a narcissist. The child needs to be grandiose. The child needs to say, it's a 2-year-old, yeah? 2 years old. Child needs to say, I don't need mother. I need mother. I'm strong. I'm great. I can take on the world on my own. This is the narcissist. Narcissism is healthy in childhood. Similarly, in adolescence, in teenage years, the adolescent or the teenager needs to reject their parents. It is by rejecting the parents that the teenager or adolescent develop an identity. They also need to be grandiose. They also need to have reduced empathy to some extent. Narcissism in adolescence and narcissism in childhood is very healthy. So we never diagnose it. Only in adulthood, after the age of 25, and some scholars like Jean Twenge and Campbell, they say after the age of 25. Only then we diagnose pathological narcissism. However, you can see the signs of psychopathy, not narcissism, but psychopathy. And we can diagnose psychopathy in children. It is not called psychopathy, it is called conduct disorder. Conduct disorder. So in children, we can see a pattern of behaviors which is highly psychopathic. These children, for example, they torture animals. They are aggressive with other children. They're violent with other children. They disobey authority. They are contumacious. They disobey authority. They're highly defiant and rebellious. Their life is very chaotic. They are truant. They don't go to school regularly and so on. They may begin to abuse substances, to smoke or to do drugs or to drink alcohol. So children who behave in these ways, they can be diagnosed with conduct disorder. And conduct disorder is another word, another phrase for psychopathy. So we can have psychopathic children, but we cannot have narcissistic children. And these children who are diagnosed with conduct disorder, when they grow up, they become adult psychopaths. Not all of them, 40%, but 40% of them become adult psychopaths. So this is very high ratio. It's a good predictor. Conduct disorder in childhood is a good predictor of adult psychopathy and criminal behavior. It's a good predictor of criminal behavior. And this starts in childhood. This is one more reason to believe that psychopathy is genetic and involves brain disorders, because we can see it in childhood, while we cannot see narcissism in childhood. So that's another reason to think that maybe it's not biological. We don't know yet. Psychopathy, clearly you can see in childhood. Borderline, you can see at age 12, you can diagnose borderline personality disorder. It's permitted, it's official. You can diagnose BPD at age 12. You're not allowed to diagnose NPD, narcissist, at age 12. No way. And you can diagnose psychopathy at age 4. 4.
Understand what thing. Two narcissists, yes, two. Can they communicate each other long time? Is it possible to decide how to survive together?
Yes, they can. But there is a condition. They need to be dissimilar narcissists. So we, for example, we make a distinction, we make a difference between cerebral narcissist and somatic narcissist. Cerebral narcissist is a narcissist who obtains attention supply by being intellectual, by being intelligent. So he uses his intelligence, his intellect, to obtain attention supply. That is cerebral narcissist. Cerebral narcissists are mostly non-sexual. They're mostly celibate. They don't have sex. And we have somatic narcissists. This is a narcissist who uses his body to obtain attention. So he could be a bodybuilder. He could be an athlete, a sportsman. He could be a Casanova, sexual, use sex to obtain supply. But he uses his body. So these two types are dissimilar. They're not the same. Because they're dissimilar, they could have a very happy, functional, long-term relationship because they're dissimilar. So, for example, the cerebral doesn't have sex. The somatic wants to have sex all the time. So they're likely to reach an arrangement where the somatic can have sex outside the marriage or outside the relationship, open relationship or open marriage. That's an example of such an arrangement. Another type of arrangement. There's a kind of narcissist called inverted narcissist. Inverted narcissist is a covert narcissist, and she obtains her supply, she obtains her attention through her partner. Her partner is an overt narcissist. For example, her partner is famous, her partner is rich, her partner is a celebrity, her partner is a professional of high standing, and so on. So reputation. So her partner is obtaining the supply, is obtaining attention, and she enjoys this attention. She benefits from this attention. So inverted narcissist and overt narcissist, they're a match made in heaven. They're perfect for each other, and they can survive for decades. They're dissimilar. The inverted narcissist, because she is a covert narcissist, cannot obtain supply. Only the overt narcissist can obtain supply. So it's like the overt narcissist is bringing the food home, and the inverted narcissist is partaking of the food, eating the food. This food is narcissistic supply, attention. In Germany in the 19th century, if you were married to a medical doctor, if your husband was a medical doctor, they would call you Mrs. Doctor, Frau Doctor, even if you didn't know how to read. Even if you were stupid completely, you didn't know even how to read, they had to call you Frau Doctor because your husband was doctor. This is perfect example of overt narcissist and inverted narcissist. All the attention, all the respect, all the narcissistic supply, they go to the overt. But the inverted narcissist enjoys it, like the sun and the moon. The light of the moon is the reflected light of the sun. It's not the sun of the moon. The light of the moon doesn't belong to the moon. It is a reflection of the sun. Same. So yes, absolutely. If the two narcissists are dissimilar, they're not the same, they can survive together very nicely and have long-term relationships and so on.
I understand. Thank you.